Okay, a question that I get a lot in real life and in internet life is why did I decide to become a mortician? Um, Not really a straightforward answer because I don't really know. Um, I think I picked it because I've always had a fascination with anatomy and physiology. I've always had a really strong stomach, and I have always wanted to see what real people look like. Um, I know that answer is kind of ethereal in a way. The best way that I can put it is when I was younger, a teenager especially, um, I craved to know what people are really like. Um, and there wasn't, it's, as a teenager, it's really hard to communicate with other teenagers, especially in a way that is real. And I think that was something that I've always craved from people, because I feel like we always put on these masks and we're always wearing a certain brand of emotion that we think that we should be wearing at, you know, during a given time or situation. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it. I just think that more often than not, what happens is that people get stuck in playing this part, and it's really rare, actually, to be reminded that the people wandering aimlessly around you on a daily basis are people with feelings and thoughts and ideas, dog, and have dreams and objectives and want to do things with their life, and they're silly, and they have personalities and they have character traits, and all of these things you'll never ever know about. And we often just forget that people are people. So it's part of our survival kind of to do that, because I think it would be really taxing on us to always be ourselves in every single circumstance, because there are lots of times when it doesn't necessarily call for it. But I don't know, I guess that's something I've been wrestling with lately, and I think that could be very, very arguable. Um, I've worked in a lot of retail and food service environments, and I used to work at this coffee shop where I served really rich people coffee in a really rich neighborhood. And I have never been somebody who would describe myself as rich. I've never had that as any part of my growing up experience, or up till now. This will never be part of my life experience. What I noticed, though, is that those people, people with a higher socioeconomic status, will act very differently than people with a lower economic or socioeconomic status. People with a higher SEO, I feel like, tend to put that mask on a lot more. And when I worked in these environments, I would find myself just wanting to know these people for who they are, because I started to hate them. And I mean, like, I hated them, I loathed them, and that was my own, part of my own problem too. I'm not saying this is completely, extraneous, but that did happen, and I found myself just wanting to know, what are these people like when they go home? What are they going home to, and how do they act there? Do they even know who they are, really? I mean, do they even know what it feels like to be the real them? Or do they just pretend so much that it all gets lost? Well, so that has been a fascination of mine for a very long time. And I think that's really the underlying reason why I went into this business. When people are sad and when they're grieving, or even if they're not really sad, maybe the passing for them was some kind of joyous occasion. they are themselves. And it's really hard when you're in that vulnerable emotional state to wear your mask. It's really hard. You can do it. You can wear your mask, but it doesn't take much for that mask to start cracking and for your real personality to start showing through. And I've seen it happen countless times, almost on a daily basis. People will come in and they'll try to pretend like everything's okay. And they might leave, and I might actually even wonder if they are just okay. And then something will happen, their voice starts cracking over the phone, or their eyes just glaze, and they just won't, you can tell, like, nothing I'm saying is even hitting the wall of what's happening in their mind. Or their eyes will just fill with tears. And they'll just kind of let all of this happen, which is the strange part. Because usually in an everyday environment, when those things start to happen and we start to feel vulnerable, we will do something to call the attention away from this thing that's happening, or we'll, pretend like, oh yeah, nope, fine, I'm fine, or we'll take some action that is drawing the attention away from this emotion that's happening, and I see that not happening as much, and people, for a second, aren't afraid to be themselves in front of a stranger. And it's really comforting for me to know that people are people. And I don't think we get a lot of reminders on a daily basis that this is life and this is the world, and people are going back to all of these different circumstances. They have their own problems and they have their own thoughts and ideas, and we just forget this. And so for me, that's why I really got into this, is I wanted to see people for who they actually are in a vulnerable moment, and to be the person who can just be there for them and let them know that whatever they're feeling at that point in time is okay, because it is. Whether you're angry or you're sad or you're guilty or remorseful or any whatever you're feeling, just to let them know that that's okay. Because the sad truth of the matter is that I might be the only person that they come across during this time in their life that tells them that whatever they're feeling is okay. Other people tend to tell us to man up and don't worry about it, and whatever people say when they don't want to deal with what's in front of them. So that's really why I got into this. I've had to think hard about that, because this is not something I've wanted to do since I was a kid, or I don't come from a funeral home family. I don't even really come from a very emotive family. My family's actually really bad with emotions, which may actually contribute to my wanting to see them more in other people. So, the other question that I wanted to answer was not one that any of you had asked, but one that ever since it was asked to me, I thought that this is the perfect question. This person could not have asked me a better question, because it really made me think deeply about my personality, my past and present personalities. This person asked me, this was while I was at work, this person asked me, so have you always been a very compassionate person? And my response, my first gut response, was to just cover it up. I don't know this person. I don't owe them any sort of real response. The antithesis of what I've just been talking about. And my gut reaction was, I actually went, no, I have not always been a compassionate person. This is learned compassion. Or maybe I've always had it inside of me, and I've never had any avenue to display it on. When I was young, when I was in grade school, and excuse me, all the way up until middle school, I was actually bullied pretty heavily, and I didn't really have a lot of friends. And then that mentality really stuck with me into high school, and where I could have been making friends, as I found out later that a lot of people actually liked me and thought I was funny or whatever. I continued this mentality of I need to be on my own. And so I pushed a lot of people away, and I took up the mantle of the bully, or I tried to. I didn't do very good at it, because mostly I just wanted to read and play Pokemon and sit on the internet and write fan fictions about Pokemon. So I just took up that mantle and really adopted this mental attitude of I'm better than everybody else, and I'm going to inflict all of the suffering and hurt that I felt for so many years. I'm going to inflict this on anybody who feels like they are entitled to talk to me or whatever it may be. It was stupid teenaged angst. And and I think, unfortunately, I then carried that mentality into my early 20s, into college, and many variables all coming together to create sort of this this personality that I had, which was very, very anti-emotion, unless it was a negative emotion, one that was condoned by society, such as anger was really big. Instead of saying I'm sad or I'm depressed, I was angry, or I would just lash out, and it built this personality of a not very compassionate person, inside and outside. So, when I went into this, when I started school, I still really had a lot of these feelings and a lot of this personality inside of me, because I was not capable at the time of really looking inside myself and doing a lot of thinking and rationalizing of why I'm acting the way that I am, and really deconstructing my actions. I did not have the tools to do that at the time, and it wasn't really until I had several very traumatic things happen to me at once that I had to re-examine my entire life, my entire personality, and I really had to think, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I here? Am I enjoying myself? What is life about? All of these really big questions, which don't necessarily have an answer, but even just thinking about them can help you sort of break down who you are and why you're doing the things that you're doing, especially. I had to spend a lot of time with this, and I'm still spending time with it. I feel like, I'm 27 years old now, I feel like I still haven't really solidified whatever personality that I'm destined and bound to have. But I have been more on this journey of finding who I am, and finding out that I'm actually a very compassionate person, to the point of I will cry with strangers when they're picking up the ashes of their loved one. I will cry at strangers' funerals. I really enjoy, if we have a person that we're having a funeral for and there's a visitation, which means that the body is present. One of my favorite things, as morbid as this sounds, but I'm sure you'll make some allowances for a person in my profession. One of my favorite things to do is actually look at them and try to imagine who they were. And you can tell so much by looking at someone's body, their hands especially. If they were a gardener, sometimes they'll just have dirt just under their fingernails, or if they worked in a labor field, especially with cars, there's a lot of motor oil under their fingernails, or you can't really wash it off, it's just there. The calluses on people's fingers, what they've been using their hands for over the years, and the lines in their face, and what caused those lines. And, you know, maybe it was she cried when her kids went off to college and she worried so much about them that now she has this worry line on her forehead. And you know, he smiled so much that he's just got these giant lines on his face. Or how people saw themselves even. 80-year-old women who come in and it's very clear that they've dyed their hair for years. And they have this, you know, bright red hair, but the past 6 months of their life was spent in a hospital bed and on morphine, hooked up to a ventilator. And so that their hair is grown out and you can see, you know, inches of white and gray roots, and then the rest is that red. And it's fascinating to me just how people are. And I think that's where that compassion comes from, is I want people to know that it's okay to be themselves. There are times when it's just allowed and it's fine. And I want to see people like that. It helps me to see people like that. It helps me to be less angry and frustrated at humanity as a whole. When people cut me off in traffic and I want to just get so pissed off and I want to ride their ass all the way until they turn or whatever they're doing, it makes me stop and think about this person's life. And more often than not, when people just do stupid things where it's clear that they don't care about what they're doing, and they don't care, and they're not thinking about anybody else because they're just so self-absorbed, it makes me feel pity for these people anymore. Because what that means is that they just don't know how awesome everything is. This is an awkward topic because I feel like I should continue to talk about it forever, and then I should leave you off on some note that is quotable and is going to end up in some philosophy quote book or give you the meaning of life or something, and I'm just not going to. That answers both of those questions, I think, and it's something I'm still exploring myself, especially a lot recently. I've been thinking about it a lot more. So that's that, I guess. I'll respond to more questions in the future, for sure. And I'll keep doing this channel when I have downtime. Sunday at 4:30 seems like a really good time to do these. Not much else going on at Sunday, or on Sunday at 4:30.